evening. Today is April 4th. The purpose of tonight's meeting, and I should note that there is another meeting taking place at 6:15 Eastern tonight. So we have until that time, no longer, for tonight's conversation, where we would like to follow up on the meeting that we held 1 week ago tonight on a Monday night. And the reason that we are holding this tonight is it was brought to my attention by a board member that we needed to ensure an accurate and correct vote for the purposes of advancing a resolution to the full board on Tuesday night. So that's why we're all gathered. We now have a list of official task members that is up on the website. I have already, previous to this call being recorded, have mentioned that one of those members who is listed is actually said she is not going to be a member of the task force. We have a quorum tonight. So what I would like to do, I think everyone on this call has received from Max the resolution. Max, are you able to share that and do a screen share of that resolution? That is the purpose of tonight's meeting, for us to review it and vote on it in the next 60 some minutes. So Max, are you able to share, or Ken, or sorry, Mark?
I'm looking for it now as well.
If you allow me to share, I have it.
Yeah, Ken, you should have that power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. That's helpful because I have about
Again,
20
before you
minutes.
do that, could I just flash a URL on the screen of where I'm keeping minutes so that anyone else who wants to join and can do so?
Sure. And this meeting has been publicly noticed for the purposes of voting on the resolution that was proposed. Anything beyond that has not been publicly noticed. So hopefully this will be a productive, quick conversation, and we look forward to, I think hopefully everyone has had a chance to review the resolution based on what was discussed last Monday. And we would like to move expeditiously to take a vote on it so that we can allow Max and others who are joining the 6:30 meeting to have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, so have people seen this? It's just bit.ly, all lowercase, /CB7 remote 4-4-22, and the CB and the R are capped. With that, I'm done.
Thanks, Rich, for agreeing to take minutes tonight. All right, so is Ken going to share on his screen the resolution?
Can you see it?
Yes.
Is it cut off on the right?
No, it is not, but if you can enlarge it just a little bit
Okay.
for those, the likes of me.
And me too.
I think that's good. There's also been a copy that's been emailed to everyone who's on this thread right now and in this call. So again, would you like?
It's cut off on the right, a little bit.
Okay, well, I think it depends on which laptops people have and computers people have. If it's easier, I'm happy to just read it for everyone.
I think everybody can see it.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so with that in mind, I'm opening this up for task force discussion. Task force members, please weigh in. We'd ask if you could please keep your comments to 1 minute or 2 minutes. And then I think we want to bring this to a vote as soon as possible. A vote will then advance this to the full board meeting tomorrow night on Tuesday. Would anyone like to lead off with comments or questions from the task force?
I see Shelley's hand if you're not able to see it.
Mark, yeah, I do see it, and I'm going to call on people as they show up. So thank you. So Shelley, over to you.
Okay, I support this resolution, and particularly taken note of last week's surge in the new of COVID, largely the new variant, with the largest numbers and percentages of the three of the five being 23, 24, and 25 zip codes in our community. So to have this option as long and as much as necessary, I think makes good sense, is reasonable and responsible.
Thank you. I see Clary's hand, then Rich, and then Mark.
Okay, I have a dumb question or two because I confess that I've been very involved in something else and have not read these statutes, these proposed statutes. So Ken, in terms of your language, that describing these bills to meet using the virtual platforms they have been using during the pandemic, do these statutes require continuing to use the same virtual platform, or is that a little bit ambiguous there?
No, it doesn't specify which virtual platforms, but it would allow us to use things like Zoom and.
Well, then I would say, how would this be to meet using virtual platforms such as they have been using?
Okay, I would accept that.
We've always been good editors of each other, Ken. And my other question, again, apologize for not having not made myself find the time to read these. It's not much of an excuse. These bills do not address any question of where one must be when one is voting. Is that right?
No, it's not specifically,
Correct.
but it allows, it does not prohibit somebody from voting who is not in person.
Okay, so suppose that we at CB7 decided, yeah, we want to accommodate electronic means for whatever reasons. Oh, and by the way, this is without a time limit, right? This is essentially permanent. This would be, if adopted, would be permanent until the legislature did otherwise.
Yes.
All right, okay. So suppose at CB7 we wanted to, for various reasons, to allow some version of electronic means for us. Would these statutes prohibit us from doing one thing that we've talked about, although whether we would want to do it is a different question, which is you're a board member, you can participate electronically, so can the public, but to vote as a board member, you need to be there in person. That's one permutation we've talked about. We haven't decided it one way or the other. If these were adopted, would that would that be an option for us?
Yes. Because it says to permit but not require. That's the key wording there.
So you think we could permit under whatever other constraints or rules we decided to adopt consistent with our going hybrid in some fashion?
Yeah.
Or totally remote for that matter. Well, I think my question doesn't so much apply to totally remote.
What you're talking about would be taken care of by various boards and their bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
This would just permit boards to go the route of having remote meetings and allow people to vote, or have hybrid meetings and allow people to participate fully, including voting, if they wanted to. Right now, unless the open meetings law is suspended as it is now, we can't do that.
Okay, thanks. Those are helpful responses to help me understand. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we next had, if I am going through just by the order, Rich, Mark, Jay, and then I think Bob Espier.
Oh, sorry, just 1 second. Ken, you left in a "the" that doesn't belong there before virtual platforms in our little edit. And otherwise, using virtual platforms such as.
Okay, thank you, Clary.
This why we have lots of amazing attorneys on this call and on this task force, because they know
editors
too. Exactly.
Who need editors.
Exactly. Okay, so Rich, I think you're next.
Yeah, and just a quick comment overall is I think that there's a difference between what is allowed and what is required. And so for a number of these things, there's a question of, what things should the law allow so that community boards can do, or any public body can go beyond that and, or can do things that are allowed, and then, which things are required by the law, that, community boards wouldn't be able to deviate from. And so something like allowing virtual meetings, what Ken is saying is that's something that's allowed, it's not required per this change. I do want to raise a reason to make it permanent. I'm not going to do a hard sell on why I think we should support this, because I think people on this call, with one or two exceptions, are in favor, so I assume it's going to pass. In terms of it being not just a temporary thing, but a permanent thing, I think that there are situations that, are possible scenarios that I've thought of, whether it's weather conditions, future pandemics, a terrorist attack, something else. If the police went on strike, there are just any number of situations where we might want the ability to meet virtually in the future. And I think we don't want to limit ourselves to say, like, once the next variant passes and things get back to normal, we should change the law to require in-person meetings, because we don't know what might change in the future. And we don't want to have to wait for a governor's executive order or the legislature to have to meet to be able to meet in the future, especially when we might want to meet to discuss an urgent condition that's happening right now.
Thanks, Rich. I mean, I want to be clear that tonight's discussion is about the scope of what is in this language for this resolution. And we have a task force, and we're going to be meeting to discuss those types of contingencies after this. So I think those are really valid points. But for tonight, this is what we're focused on.
Yep. Having said that, I do want to propose an amendment saying two things. One is that any changes to open meetings law should require that all meetings, whether they're in person, hybrid, or all remote, must live stream, record, and post the meetings online. And also that any chat among board members, among all board members, be visible real time as well as archived for public view. So I think to the extent that the open meetings law is being changed right now and we're commenting on it, I think those changes are important to include in any law that's changed.
Okay, so it sounds like there's an amendment on the table. Is there a second to that? And then we will have to vote on the amendment. Rich, if you have that in writing, I don't want to edit what is there right now. I think putting it, listing it as an amendment is what we're going to.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll text.
We need a second first. So is there a second on what Rich is proposing? I do not hear a second.
I would second.
Okay, so now we are going to, I guess, vote on what that amendment is. If I understand procedurally, and this is where Mark, I know you can probably help me more than I know, but I think we have to vote on whether or not we approve of the amendment, in which case the amendment will reflect the new language that will be voted on. And if not, we go back to the original resolution that's currently on the table.
Don't we first?
I'm going to look at Shelley on this. Thank you for calling me, but.
I forgot that Shelley was on the call.
Okay, so simply, we have to vote on the amendment. And if the amendment passes, it's added on to the resolution, and then we vote on the resolution. If it fails, it fails.
But Shelley, don't we first debate the amendment if anybody wants to?
Yes.
We can debate, yeah, we can debate the amendment, sure.
Okay, I'm just reminding everyone, we have until 6:15 tonight, and then we are all going poof. And there's, we want to be as organized as possible on an issue that we all care about, which is how we're approaching return to in-person, Zoom, virtual, and hybrid meetings. And I hate to put those time constraints on us, but this Zoom meeting will end at 6:15. So let's, if there is an amendment, it sounds like there's an amendment on the floor. Maybe Rich, if you want to present it and read it, that is what I believe we will vote on.
Okay, and I just texted it to Ken. So Ken, if you want to paste it just so people can read it on the screen, it's not.
We need to do everything in transparency as well. So we need to put it on the screen. So thanks for doing that. And we can be quick about getting it up. We were not aware that this was coming up tonight. So, and it was not noticed So this is not something that has been publicly noticed for discussion tonight. I just want to make sure that is clear.
I thought we did
A
notice.
point of order, Elizabeth.
But Jay, I was talking, so I thought we noticed that there was a resolution being discussed. I don't
thought
think we need
Elizabeth
to
was,
notice the exact language of a resolution. I think we're allowed to.
It was a resolution that we discussed last Monday, and I'm in charge of this meeting. And this is, you know, we have an amendment on the table. Ken, thank you for typing it, or whoever is typing it. And unless people have their hands raised specific to the amendment, I believe it is something we should vote on right now.
I do have my hand raised for that reason.
so do I.
So
Okay,
do
Jay,
I.
I saw your hand first, and then Barbara.
Okay, I thought you said it, you were going to allow me to introduce it.
I can see it on the screen. I don't think we need to waste time. You've already presented it, and so we see
Okay.
what it is, and I think we know.
Elizabeth, would you add me to the queue on that, please?
Sure. Jay, Barbara, Mark, no more than 1 minute each if possible.
And my hand is up too.
Yeah, I just think it's inappropriate to take up this language when this was clearly a special meeting called to discuss and vote on an amendment that was circulated. And really this language, while frankly, I don't particularly find it objectionable, and we tend to do these things now, but I don't think it's appropriate. It's not germane to the resolution that was circulated for the purpose of discussing and voting on what is essentially a special meeting. And since this task force is going to continue to meet, and this proposed amendment can really be brought up at any time, I would suggest that I would first ask Rich to withdraw it. And if not, I would suggest that it's improperly before the committee.
Hey, Barbara, and then Mark, and then Rob.
I also feel that this is inappropriate. It actually really makes me angry because the idea of sharing chat has been a very controversial idea, and to try to stick it in here is pretty outrageous. And I will vote against this whole resolution if this passes and is part of this resolution.
Thanks, Barbara. Mark.
Thank you. I don't think it's inappropriate to raise it, but I don't think that we should vote for it. My reasoning mostly is that when we try to either endorse or oppose, mostly endorse legislation, we should do so based on the bill that's been written, and you either vote up or down with that bill, but we live or die with the bill. If we start trying to rewrite the Senate's the bill that's in committee now, I don't think our resolution would be taken at all seriously. So I think from a practical standpoint, rather than a formalistic one, that this is not a smart thing to do. I agree with Jay that there'll be plenty of time to talk about all these things later. And quite frankly, there are already, some of these requirements are already in the open meetings law. So I think that we would be gilding the lily a little bit, and therefore I would encourage this to be tabled, the amendment to be tabled, and the resolution as originally formatted to be approved forthwith. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Bob, and then I think that's going to be the last comment. We really need to move this along, and I think we need to vote on the amendment if we want to, unless the proposer of the amendment wants to withdraw it. So Bob, next.
Yeah, I'm at one with my colleagues with a little less ire than Barbara, but she's certainly quite right. And Jay hit it on the mark, I think. And that you don't want to overburden this. Ken's resolution is perfect, to the point, to the legislation. And we have to keep in mind that when something, not just this, and all legislation is the character of legislation, if it's not disallowed, you have the flexibility to work with it, do what you want. So these features, whether we're talking about platform or we're talking about streaming, these things can come later. We used to call in information technology add-ons, with certain kind of things. And these things are all allowed, and they're the prerogative either of, in the case of the borough president, it's important too, because think of how many meetings that the large meetings, the monthly meetings that are facilitated by the borough president's office. And if they choose a different platform for whatever reason, that's their prerogative, and it's usually for some very sound technical reason. So I would leave it as is. and not burden it, and it's unnecessary, and it's something down the line that we're going to get to anyway. That's
Thank
our
you.
choice.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. So I think we have,
Elizabeth, I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
Ken, you can have the last word on this, but we
Okay.
really
Do
do
I
need
not
to
get
move
a
this
chance to
along.
respond since it's my amendment?
We are going to move this along, let Ken speak, and then Rich, unless you have something additional that hasn't been said yet, we're going
I
to
do.
have this moving forward. So Ken?
Okay, well, I have two, one, I was going to suggest cutting the part about the chat and just leaving it the first clause. But I just wanted to ask Mark why it would be, I think often we support legislation and say, and the legislation could be improved in this way. And we hope that it will be. And since the legislature is presumably going to be taking this up, wouldn't they benefit from a community board's input on what else they might consider?
If I could just jump in, Ken, we've held these meetings for many weeks now, and the whole point of the task force is to provide insights with or without resolutions, but actual data and information that we can send then to our legislators that can help guide them. So I just want to be clear that this is something that we can address now, or we can address at a future task force meeting. Mark.
I'd just be interested in Mark's response.
I continue to think, Ken, that when we do try to embellish an existing statute or bill that has been proposed and then sent to committee and so forth, that we are making ourselves irrelevant. And I would rather us be relevant and be heard. I think Elizabeth had I'm not sure if this, I don't want to put words in Elizabeth's mouth, but many of the things that are in the proposed amendment are things that could be part of our bylaws or part of our work in this task force. And so there's plenty of opportunity to consider all of those worthy things. I don't think there's anything wrong with the amendment other than that it takes, my view, it detracts from the clean support that we want to give, or some of us want to give, to the proposed legislation. That's my thought.
Okay, so I'm going to have Rich close this out with no more than 1 minute, and then we're going to, if he doesn't want to retract what the amendment is, I think we need to move forward on voting on the amendment from there.
So
Rich.
4 quick points. Number 1, we have to notice that we're discussing resolutions. We don't have to notice the final text for the resolution. So I don't think it's inappropriate for us to amend a resolution. It's something we do all the time. Number 2, to Mark's point, I think now is our chance to comment. We can strongly support the resolution, but show how it could be made even better. Number 3, the chat is already legally public. It just has to be foiled. So I think it's, if 50 board members are having a private discussion in a public meeting, that should be available real time and not force people to foil it. And number 4, there's right now no requirement that in-person meetings are either streamed, videotaped, or archived. And I think that's a miss. And I think we've shown that it's a great thing for us to be live streaming and archiving all of our meetings on YouTube. And I think that should be a state law, not just for us, not just in our bylaws, but for all public meetings.
Okay, so we have an amended version of the resolution on the table right now. It doesn't not appear, Rich, that you would like to withdraw that amendment, so everyone can see it on their screen. I'd like to call the question. I believe if Shelley and Mark as parliamentarians agree with me, this is an opportunity to vote on the resolution with Rich's amendment in it.
No, only on the amendment.
Right.
So
and
we
if
vote
could
on the be it further
stop sharing
resolved.
for a second.
Excuse me?
Can we stop the screen share now so we can take a vote?
Why can't we vote with the screen share?
Because it's easier to count the hands and to lower the hands with
Right,
the.
and Rich, I think you're taking the minutes, so you're counting the votes.
Yep.
So all those in favor of,
We got to stop.
Hang on a
Do I
second.
have to
Someone has to
stop?
lower all hands first.
Take it, Bill, down, please.
How do I have to?
Just
Yeah.
hit stop
You put
sharing.
it up, you have to take it down.
yeah, I'm the head of the task force, and I don't know why I didn't get permission to be able to lower hands and raise hands and everything else, but I
Elizabeth,
think,
you do have it. You're a co-host. You
okay,
do have
so,
it.
so I apologize for that. I could have sort
Okay,
of
there we go.
closed
Let's
the
vote.
screen. We're doing a vote on Rich's amendment. So if I understand correctly, if we're all on the same page here, all those in favor of the amendment that Rich has proposed, please raise your hand. Is there anyone here who doesn't have the tech capability to raise their hand but would like to vote in favor? I do not see anyone who has joined this meeting who has texted me or has done that. So that seems like 3 people. So I guess we do hands down, which I can do, I think. Actually, I'm not sure if I can, but hands are down. Thank you. Whoever did that, thank you. Now, I guess, do we need to?
All opposed.
All opposed. Please raise your hand. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 opposed. So if and then we can unraise everyone's hands now. Is there anyone abstaining or abstaining for cause? It does not look like from the hands up that there is anyone abstaining or abstaining for cause. So it looks like, Rich, tell me if you're reading this
Yeah,
correctly.
3800.
You're
Okay.
doing non-committee as well? Am I the only non-committee?
We can do non-committee.
I should say.
Non-committee in favor of the amendment. Okay, it doesn't look like any hands are raised. Are there any non-committee who are not in favor? They could raise their hand. Look like we have 1. Is there anyone abstaining or abstaining for cause who is not a task force member? All right. I think that is 0 to 1 to 0 to 0 on the non-committee, non-task force members. So I believe the amendment has failed. My understanding now is that we need to vote on the actual resolution that came before this task force that was presented to all of you in the last 24 hours. I believe that is now up for a vote. Jay, I see your hand raised.
I had my hand raised to discuss the main proposal, the main resolution, but we went to the amendment before I was called on. So I want to speak about the main resolution.
Okay, I just want to make sure for our parliamentarians on this call, Shelley and Mark, we can now move back to debate on the actual resolution and vote on the resolution.
Elizabeth, this is Max just jumping in. I now officially have to jump to get to my next meeting. This meeting is going to continue to run. Mark has graciously agreed to continue running the back end tech of it. So I wish everyone good luck. I'll look forward to seeing the results perhaps later tonight, but got to roll, and I will see you all later. Thank you.
Thanks for your help. Okay, so I think we're back to the actual resolution. We have discussed and debated this extensively. We did it last Monday. And Jay, I think, yeah.
Excuse me, Elizabeth, I had my hand raised.
I
had
allowing
my
you to
hand
speak.
raised to discuss the resolution.
Yes.
And before you called on me, you went to a discussion and vote on an amendment. So now we're back to the resolution that's proposed.
We are back to the resolution that's proposed, and the floor is yours, Jay.
Thank you.
Speak, Jay.
So, first of all, let me say that I do not object basically to the substance of this legislation. But the comments, particularly Shelley's comments and Clary, kind of made the point for me because being candid and saying she didn't get a chance to read the bill, she asked a couple of questions as to what the bill says. And my objection to this resolution, again, it's not to the substance of the legislation, It's to the description that Ken has included in the resolution. That's frankly, it's inaccurate. It doesn't reflect what the bill says or what the bill does, and it's misleading. And Clary kind of put an exclamation point on that by asking questions which were answered incorrectly. Let me explain further, and I beg your indulgence on this. First of all, the open meetings law, and you can see it in the text of the bill where it's crossed out, already, if not explicitly, but by implication, permits public bodies to meet by teleconferencing. So there's no underlying issue to that. Teleconferencing, unlike meetings and a couple of other phrases, is nowhere explicitly defined in the open meetings law. And when that occurs in legislation, and without, seeming pretentious, I drafted, revised, edited, and negotiated legislation for 16 years in the state legislature. So when a bill contains a phrase, in this case, teleconferencing, and the statute in question doesn't specifically define it, then the term is given its common usage or dictionary meaning. And if you look at the dictionary definition of teleconferencing, which I'll quickly read to you, it's the holding of a conference among people remote from one another by means of telecommunication by devices such as telephones and computer terminals. So there's nothing in the open meetings law now that prohibits a public body from meeting remotely. That's the first thing. We don't need further authorization, and this bill has nothing to do with that. What the existing law says is that if you do hold a meeting remotely and any member of the public body is not at a central location, then any member of the public has a right to be where that member is. So that if we have a 50-member community board, if 49 of us met at a central location and we allowed remote voting, and Ken decided to stay home and come in on Zoom, we could put up a notice that says everybody in the community that wants to attend the meeting can go to Ken's apartment. So I think this legislation is substantively timely. The current law is anachronistic. You shouldn't have this requirement. And that's essentially what the bill does. And to answer Clary's questions, that's all that the bill does. So what I would suggest, and I would suggest it to Ken, is if we just have a resolution that says we support this bill without purporting to describe what the bill does, because the description is inaccurate, I think it would get universal support. I personally think doing any of this legislation is premature, because when the world gets back to something normal, the legislature is going to have to deal with a plethora of circumstances that are going to be raised by what's happened during the pandemic. But I will, if the descriptive language were not in this resolution, I might not support it. I might abstain because I think it's premature, but I wouldn't oppose it. But as it is, it's simply inaccurate. And I hate to see this board do a resolution where they're supporting legislation and describing the legislation inaccurately and in a misleading sense.
So Jay, thank you. Is what you're saying that you would request, again, Ken, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth, but a friendly amendment to make the resolution simply in support of the legislation, period, versus all the other things?
Yes.
Is that something that is friendly to you, Ken?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Then
And if I have my hand raised, I'd like to respond.
Actually,
Because-
you're second in the queue to respond. So I'd like to go to Barbara first, who has
Okay,
her hand
thank you.
raised.
I just wanted to point out to Jay that in the amended actual the resolution as presented by Hoylman, it does say that the physical locations for the meeting that are open to the public shall be disclosed. It doesn't say that if I'm having the meeting from home, then my location has to be disclosed, because it would not be one of the public places.
I agree, Barbara. That's what the bill is changing. The current law would
Right.
provide that.
Yeah.
The bill takes away that requirement.
I don't see that Ken's resolution is a problem. I mean, unless I'm missing something.
The resolution to support the bill is not problematical. The saying that it permits public bodies to do what they're doing now, and so it's this bill has nothing to do with that. This bill, in addition to some requirements, and by the way, to all of you and to this board, the bill also requires that when you join a remote meeting and when you leave a remote meeting has to be disclosed and recorded. And you might want to be, some members of this board might want to be very careful in what they wish for. But the fact of the matter is that the bill does not do what the description in this resolution says it does. And frankly, I think it's embarrassing for a community board with the overall intelligence that we have on this board is to do a resolution which is just inaccurate and misleading when we can simply do a resolution to support the bill. So unless it's changed, I intend to vote against it, and I would urge everybody else to do the same.
Thank you, Jay. I'm going to move next. Barbara, you've spoken to Ken and then to Rich, and then I'm reminding everyone that we do have to vote on the resolution by 6:15 so that we can have, there will be something that is discussed tomorrow night at the full board meeting, and hopefully it will be a resolution and votes that are taken on what we're discussing now. So, Ken.
Okay. Jay, for one thing, it doesn't talk about teleconferencing. It talks about video conferencing. That's fact number one that you got wrong. And it does say exactly what the bill says. It doesn't say it explicitly, but it says to meet allows, permits or requires, permits but does not require to meet using virtual platforms such as they have been using during the pandemic. So to me that, Jay, you have to let me finish.
Yes, sorry.
To me, that means that during for the last 2 years, I have not had to invite the public into my bedroom to join the meetings. But you make a point that it doesn't explicitly say that. So I have added the following sentence to make this explicit. And that sentence would read, this would mean that board members could meet from a remote location without the public being allowed access to their remote location.
I mean, that's fine, Ken, depending on where you put it.
Right at the end.
Yeah, well, then that leaves in the language that I believe is just inaccurate and misleading, trying to describe what this bill does. This bill doesn't permit anything that isn't already permitted. All it does is what you just described in the last sentence. That's all it does.
And I would just point out that I took, basically lifted the large part of this language from Mark's summary. So it was 2 minds on our board, not 1.
Well, I have great respect for Mark, but I think if you reread the summary, it's somewhat vague. as
Okay,
to
so
exactly what it does. But
thanks,
if the
thanks, Ken,
language is
and
just
if I
wrong.
could just, if I could move this along, thanks, Ken, thanks, Jay. We have a resolution on the table that requires a vote tonight. I'm gonna move it to Rich, I'm gonna move it to Doug, and then we're gonna move to vote on this, and I'm sure there will be robust discussion tomorrow night, depending on how, regardless of how this vote turns out. So Rich, over to you.
Yeah, I'll actually let Doug go first because I was just going to call the question. I do ask Ken either to put the new text that he just wrote on the screen or to read it once again so I can make sure I get it proper in the minutes.
Good point, given that, you know, things are going to be zoomed or recorded, and we're going to need to make sure this is there. So, okay, this would mean that board members could meet from a remote location without the public being allowed access to their remote location. Is that, I don't think that's something that we have considered a friendly amendment yet, though.
Why don't you add the word specific without being, the public being allowed to access their specific remote location?
Okay.
Yeah, because the remote location could be a location that's open to the public.
We're going to go to Doug quickly, and then we're going to close this out. I want to remind people that we came tonight to vote on the resolution, which is everything that is listed in black text on this Word document that is being shared right now. I believe, if I understand correctly, that the items in red, I don't know if that's a friendly amendment that the proposer, Ken, has agreed to, that we are.
Well, since I wrote it, I think I agree with
Okay,
it.
but that's, I guess that's what you would like to add. I don't know if.
Yeah. In fact, I was just thinking we could say this would mean contrary to current law.
I don't think we need to, again, I'm just, as the
May I-
chair of the
may I
task force, I'd like
suggest-
to keep things as simple as possible for the
May-
purpose of the fact that we have, 20 minutes left in this meeting. Doug,
Elizabeth, may I suggest that this be put in a separate paragraph just as a informational piece, or else it becomes a amendment which has to be voted on?
That's a great idea, Shelley. I think if there are no objections to that, that's,
Is what I just did do it, Shelley?
Yeah, it would be a clarification information piece, not the resolution.
Okay.
Then the language would have to be changed. Even that language would have to be changed because you.
And I move that Ken and Jay go to some remote place and work out the language.
well, why don't we have Doug weigh in,
Only
and then
security.
And then if everyone else, I think everyone else has had a chance to speak, and I want to give, I want us to be ready for our meeting tomorrow night. We all have opinions on this, and I'm very excited that we have so many of you part of this task force. There are going to be issues that continue beyond what we propose and vote on tomorrow night. So with that in mind, Doug, over to you.
Okay. So first of all, I stipulate that I'm not a member of the task force. I had an opportunity to be on, but participating here. What I don't understand is why the reiteration, whether erroneous or accurate, is necessary, the description or the exposition. Why isn't it just simply, be it resolved, the community board Manhattan supports adoption of these two bills, period. Why? It only creates confusion or the possibility of confusion. We will have opportunities later on the task force to decide what we want to do in our bylaws, as Mark pointed out. Why do we need any exposition, description, or reiteration of it? That's my question.
So my answer is again, as the person who's been notionally trying to hold this group together the last several months, is that there was something that was proposed. This is what came forward. It will get voted on tonight, either for or against from the members of the task force, and it'll go to a discussion at the full board.
Can I answer, Doug?
Ken, you can answer quickly, but you've had a lot of chance to do this, so feel free.
Well, I think his question deserves an answer because it's a good question. The reason I think it's important to leave it in is because this is a public document, and it tells the community why these bills are important and why we support them and what the bills would do. If we just leave it at the bill numbers, then people have to go research the bills. They have to look at the text. Frankly, the text, I have a little trouble interpreting the text all by itself because it's legalistic language. So I think this does the rest of our board and the community a favor, and any journalist who might be writing about this. So I think it's very important that we try to characterize it as briefly as possible and as objectively as possible.
Thanks, Ken. I should note that there is a description in the legislation that is not the same as what we include in this resolution, if I understand correctly. I'm looking at it right now. So it's the second paragraph from June 25th, 2021 from the Hoylman legislation. I'm not saying it's not in the same spirit. I just, it is not word for word what is there
Yeah,
in their summary.
I don't think that's all that helpful. What that's.
It's not. I mean, I'm just stating as a fact that it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So we are making we are as community board, and I don't agree or disagree with what you've put in here, but it is different than what they have summarized this to be. So I don't think there are any other hands up. Let me just double check for this. I think what we have on the table right now is a resolution, and I want to thank everyone for bearing with us and making this a really good conversation over the last several weeks, and especially to those who are on the call tonight. This is an important conversation that will continue beyond this vote tonight. But I do think the motion that's on the table and the reason we wanted to do this meeting tonight was to have a vote on Ken's resolution, which was something he came to us, and thank you, Ken, you came to us and said you wanted to bring forward something to the task force, which we have now done. And I think we're now ready to vote on it. So if
Can I make one really small suggestion? It seems that an issue is that we have the resolved part, which is supporting the bills, and the explainer part. If we just put the new paragraph before which would amend, and have all the explanation which had been in the resolution when we started this meeting, that which was just added as a second paragraph. That way we're clear, we're resolving that we support the adoption of the bills respectively. And then in the new paragraph, we'd say this would amend the open meetings law, and this would mean that board members could meet. So that way we're separating the interpretation of what it means from the resolved paragraph. Does everyone like that? I see Shelley nod his head.
What about the other language then? The language that's already.
I'm not proposing changing that. I'm just proposing changing the paragraph to.
Then it has the same effect, no matter where you put it.
I don't think it solves.
I think we have a resolution that's on the table, and if we want to put it back on the screen.
Okay, then I'd like to call the question.
So I think it's time to vote on the resolution as it stands right now. I don't know if we can share it on the screen, but for those who haven't seen it, it's the resolution that was shared less than 24 hours ago with one item in red, which just gives some factual information down below, which is not part of the actual resolution. So the resolution was what was sent to all of you by Max yesterday. So we're going to ask people to vote. Those in support, please raise your hand.
I have good news.
The resolution passes. Well, it doesn't pass yet. I don't know what the good news was, Shelley. But all those who are opposed, please raise your hand.
Hey. Hey, how you doing? Pretty good. How are you?
If everyone could please mute their phone if they're not attending to committee board business, that would be great.
How are things going?
That's you, Robert.
Sorry, I thought somebody was okay, so it looks like we have 2 who are abstaining. Is there anyone who is abstaining for cause?
I thought they voted against.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh,
So did
sorry.
I think it's 9 in
There are
favor,
8.
2 against, which is the 11 committee members, which means it's just Doug.
Right, there were 2 who voted. Could you read the votes of the task
I
force
have
members?
9 in favor, 2 opposed, and that's all task force members. So now we just have to get Doug's vote.
So I'm abstaining.
And we have 1 abstention.
Elizabeth, could I just say one thing, please?
You can. I would like to add that I debated whether or not to abstain on this, and I may abstain at the full board meeting. I'm running these meetings. I have, strong feelings about how and when and, when it's safe and what reasons we go through. There's a whole plethora of issues that this task force is going to be dealing with. I don't think this legislation, just my personal opinion, I think our elected officials would agree. I do not think that there has been a whole lot of thought put into this in terms of how and when and why, whether it's committee, members of the public, when and where and how, security, public health, public safety protocols. That's why we have the task force. That's why I'm excited to work with you all in the coming months. This is a bigger issue than what this legislation is doing. And I think it's, an initial first step that I think could be good, but I think there are a lot of holes in it that have not been addressed, that it's going to be up to teams like us to think through and provide that guidance to our elected officials. So hopefully they can produce something that is a little bit more, robust and specific in the future. So Clary, over to you.
Yeah, so I was going to be a yes, and then I was going to abstain. And by the time we finished our discussion, I thought we were in such a mess that I voted no, and that's why. But what I wanted to say is that this idea that language is in a resolution, but it's not part of the resolution, makes no sense to me. I mean, we've adopted those 4 sentences or what they are, and the idea that just because you have a paragraph break makes something not part of the resolution, I don't get that at all. And I think we're down a very bad road if that's how we're talking about our resolutions. End of story for me.
Yeah, and my understanding is I don't want to speak for Ken, but the resolution are the items that were listed in black, not the items that were listed in red. So the resolution that we voted on included that with a background paragraph at the bottom. It wasn't, the vote was, yeah. No.
Well, I think we voted on what was in black and red.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Except that we were also describing what was in red as not being in the
Yeah.
resolution. But why were we voting on it if it wasn't in the resolution?
I think we made it clear that the resolution was what was in black.
No.
Yes, we did. And
Yes,
if you want to make it
perfectly clear.
absolutely clear, write note, colon. With
right. I said comment or note or.
No. Yeah,
I
I
hate to
mean,
say this, but I think we need another vote because it seems like there's not clarity on what we voted on.
Sure, let's vote again. We've got 15 minutes, folks, and I really want us clear on this. And parliamentary procedure or not, we are voting on the items that were listed in black, which was the original resolution that was presented over 24 hours ago and submitted to all of you. Let's have a vote on that. And then the items below will be submitted as context, but not as part of the resolution. So all those in favor of that, please raise your hands.
Ken, is that your understanding of what your resolution is?
Yeah, yes.
That the part in red is not part of the resolution?
Right now, we're just voting on the part in black.
So what's the part in red doing there?
Let's,
Well, it's, I think that Jay has the best answer, I think, because that's his background. But in my experience in working in health in FQHCs and working on legislation, all of these little details are considered to be what they called in those days, from the 80s and 90s, Jay, regulatory. So that comes after the legislation. So the main thrust of the resolution is Ken's paragraph, and that's all. And the other part really doesn't belong there.
Thank you. That is, I think, what we had agreed to. And if somebody wants to state the items in red verbally during our full board meeting tomorrow night as we're voting on it as a full board, I think that's fine. But my understanding was that the vote we just took, and I'm happy to do a revote of it, but it was related to the items that were in black, the original resolution as it stood 24 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's
The
it.
slight amendment that came from me that Ken accepted.
Yes.
Yeah, in the body of the main paragraph. So can we vote so I can do whatever I'm going to do next?
It's finished.
I'm not sure what that is yet, but
We're voting on the resolution as it was submitted with a few nomenclature typo changes that Clary and Ken agreed were friendly earlier on this call. The items in black on the resolution in support of the legislation. So if everyone could raise their hands if they're in support, that would be great. Looks like we have 9. Again, I'm not taking the minutes, but if somebody could just double check me on that, it's looking 9 people.
I have 9.
Okay. Those opposed? Guess we can raise hand. Those opposed?
Robert, your hand is still up. Okay.
I try to lower it. You still see it?
No,
No,
now it's gone.
Okay.
Looks like
I
we
show
have 1.
9-1.
It looks like we have 1 opposed. Do we have any abstentions? We have 2 abstentions.
no,
1.
1.
1, sorry, 1
1.
abstention. And I don't think we have any abstentions for
That
cause.
just leaves Doug. Right?
I'll continue to abstain as a
Emphatically.
not so emphatically.
I think we should I think we should reserve, let's let our committee members and board members speak for their opinions. So he is abstaining from this. And I think if that is all, I think we have a vote and we are done at 6:03. So
Motion to
Elizabeth,
adjourn.
I just have one suggestion between now and tomorrow's full board meeting. Just a request that everybody actually read the statute.
Good idea.
thank you. I think that's good. And I think we will make sure that we can have Max.
And the bill.
Yes, we'll make sure we have Max circulate that and also make sure that he has this version with the minor changes that were deemed to be friendly by Clary and Ken. I want to thank everyone for a productive conversation. Let's see how this goes. Again, the work of this task force is going to be ongoing. This is a whole new world we're living and working in, and it probably would have happened even before the pandemic. So, there's a lot to discuss, and I'm grateful again for all of your inputs and helping to make our community input even better. So thank you and have a great night.